Okay, hey, I'm Rob Helmer. Work for Mozilla. I do web dev stuff. I don't know if people know, we use Etherpad for for meeting notes. We use it for doing interviews with people. We do it for a lot of different collaborative stuff that we do. So this is the old Etherpad, like pre-Etherpad-lite. Nobody's seen it. This is what it looks like. I know some people some people are like, "Oh, what's that?" And some people, you know, uh, react with horror when they see it. So anyway, it's not. It's got a. It has some issues. It does. It has stood up for this long. There are still people patching it, including us, for security patches every once in a while. But it's got it's kind of a heavy stack, and it's got some issues. So we've been looking to replace it with Etherpad-lite for a while, but we're missing one feature in particular. I think is the big blocker for us moving to Etherpad-lite, and that's teampads. Um, and one thing we use it for is if you log into the old Etherpad, you can create teams and then invite people to use a pad, and only those people within the team can see that pad, and you can revoke access as well. So that's a feature we actually use quite a bit um, for something we want to collaborate on that we don't want to be public for whatever reason initially. We're generally a very transparent organization, but sometimes we have to interface with other organizations like phone carriers, for example, or any kind of legal issues, and we can't have that you know have that on a public pad. But people really want to use the same interface they're used to. So we also have a wiki. We have MediaWiki installed. We have a lot of different things, but this seems to be one of the ones people prefer. So this is Etherpad-lite. It's running on it's a Staccato. It's actually a commercial Cloud Foundry cloud that we have internally. It's a lot like Heroku. So I've made a couple really minor modifications to Etherpad, so I can actually push to Heroku, or you can push to our internal cloud, which is really convenient. So I've added support for Persona. I'll go over how this is implemented in a minute, but I'll give you a quick demo of how it works right now. The UX is pretty rough, but it was built as a kind of prototype to show that this will actually work. So Persona is formerly known as Browser ID. It's single sign-on for the web is basically. Um, so here's one. So I've already created one here, but let me create a new one. Etherpad SF. So I've created a new team, um, and I can create. So there's no pads within this team. I can create some pads within this team. I can add. So I'm logged in as rhelmer.org, and I can add this other account, give him access to it. So without having to log in, log out a bunch of times, the easiest way to show this to you is I should be able to go there. So it's not going to let me log in. Oops, excuse me. Let me actually go to a pad. That's more. Yeah. So it won't let me see this pad because I'm not logged in. I'm not allowed. If I was to, say I'm in a different browser, however, if I log in with this guy, I give myself access to the Mozilla account. If I log in as this guy, now I can see all my pads, including Etherpad SF. Super secret. So now I can collaborate with these guys on the secret pad. So I initially wanted to do this as a plugin. So I wanted to do an auth plugin, which was Browser ID at the time, but now Persona, and I wanted to do a TeamPad plugin. But unfortunately, I couldn't really get either of those working as a plugin without basically doing requires into the Etherpad plugin. Because I wanted to just use the API and stay, as far away from talking directly to DB and doing all that as possible. But with the current state of the API, that's not really possible. So it's something I know other people have been looking at, and we've been having conversations about how to change that so we can make it easier to plug into the auth API. And like Persona, for instance, is something there's a remote server that you get that you're getting authentication tokens from. So it's a lot like if somebody wanted to use LDAP or something else, where you had a remote server involved. Being able to support those kind of plugins would be great. The TeamPad stuff, maybe I could give you a very quick idea of what this looks like. Oops, it's against the develop branch. So I'm working against the develop branch right now. I just have a TeamPad branch in my repo. So yeah, here it is. So you can see it's not a ton of changes, but some of the stuff. I'm a little behind the times because I know, for instance, um, when I wrote this patch, Etherpad was doing all its own session management. It wasn't using Express session IDs. It was not using socket.io rooms, but that's not true now. So as of fairly recently, within the past month or so. So I've got one of the bugs I have is to merge all this stuff. We are also doing a security audit. Mozilla has a pretty big security team who are very good, and we're doing a security audit right now of Etherpad-lite with and without, like Etherpad-lite itself and with the teampad plugin. So we've got some recommendations and stuff I'm going to push upstream. Ideally, I would like to push the teampad stuff either upstream as a core feature, or I'd like to make it possible for it to be a plugin. It has to reach kind of deep to do what it does. The main thing, really the biggest single issue right now, is that extending pads is pretty tricky. Trying to see if I have, I think it's in pad.js, yeah. Okay. So doing something like this, it would be much better if I could, for example, extend pad and then implement my own secure team pad. There's a bunch of ways that could be done. I don't think this is the right way to do it, unless teampad's going to be a built-in core feature, which maybe it should. I don't know. Certainly willing to work on it, work on it as a plugin or that way. It's just something we need before we can ship. So that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions on any of this stuff? Comments?
Is there any particular reason you couldn't implement that kind of auth as just a proxy?
As a proxy, well, so the problem, well, oh, sorry, yeah, that's a good point. So the question is, could we implement the authentication as a proxy? Do you mean like a proxy server in front of it, like the way you do?
You want to go to that URL, and it looks and sees if you have the right credentials to allow you to go to the URL.
You could, because then you would get, as a server-side environment variable, you'd get the username, right? So I guess you could implement it that way. I wanted to do, I'm trying to think, I don't know, I think there might be a Persona Apache module, so that might be possible. Because I'd like to avoid having to do the, the HTTP auth kind of ugly pop-up. I'd like to avoid that, if at all possible, and use our browser ID. The Persona stuff is, we're working on building it into the browser. It's right now, it works cross-browser, and it's always going to work cross-browser. But we're also working on implementing it in the browser Chrome, so it'll actually be built in. So I'd like to continue taking advantage of that. That's a good point, though. Plugins could be done that way. Then you become very dependent on the server. I think it would be nice to just be able to click install on a plugin and have it work. Is kind of what I'm thinking. If you look at the actual code to support Persona, is not a lot. Most of this code you're looking at is the teampad stuff. I think it's not split into its own commit right now, but it's actually very little code. Here it is in Session Manager. Yeah, I think this is the basic create verified session. So there's not a whole lot to it, and it's mostly just copy and paste from existing manager code, like create some new managers. It's not really, I've made a new team manager, for example, but this could be a lot less code depending on how it's implemented. If as I said, it could be done technically as a plugin. I'm just trying to avoid doing a lot of this kind of require. I want to do as little of I would rather avoid doing like require on the database, require on DB and then doing direct DB calls from the plugin if at all possible. I'd like to do it, some kind of API call for that instead. So, yeah. So, and one thing I want to mention on this too is I think the first thing is we want to ship Etherpad-lite, replace etherpad.mozilla.org with that. The next big thing is scalability for us. Is we very routinely have people like Mozilla Foundation, people doing big collaborative things and say, hey, we had 100 people on a pad and it crashed. Like, what's wrong? Like, they file a bug and they're like, please pick it back up. And we're like, you can't have 100 people on a pad. I'm sorry, we can't do that. Especially not on the old Etherpad, Mozilla, but even on the new one, scaling it, people are like, well, just throw more servers, just do that, just make it work. And I think, it's not a problem we're going to throw servers at, but it's a problem we can help to, contribute code to get it working to the point where we can throw servers at it. So yeah, that's it. And if nobody else has anything else, I'll give the floor. Cool. Sure.